In today's episode we will deal with general painting in standard IDF shade, cover the details in colors and make hand-painted markings. So let's get this party started. I'm starting a bit differently than usual because I'm showing the final effect at the beginning, just for a change and to show what you can expect today. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and many thanks to my patrons. You can also be one of them, so don't wait for better time because now is the best moment to join the team and help me to develop the channel. Just look at the website on Patreon, you can find the link in the end of this video and in the description below. I dismantled the model into individual elements to make it easier to paint. Machine guns, droid, antennas and some other small items will be attached to wooden sticks. Of course you can stick them to the model beforehand, but it won't be easy to maneuver the brush and airbrush to paint all the nooks and crannies. Besides, it's easy to damage some small elements during painting. Antennas for sure, because it happened to me more than once, even in the final stage when the model was almost 100% ready. One hand movement and we need to spend some extra precious minutes to repair broken parts. Now unfasten the tracks and remove the wheels. Each wheel also be attached to a stick for easier painting. The drive wheel will be removed at the end because the side covers and tracks prevent a different method. As you can see, the whole thing works like in a real vehicle. Lovely. Now a little bit of cleaning. As you have noticed in the previous videos, I use a special product which is model degreaser. It's so much better than ordinary washing in water with soap because firstly, it dries faster, which is undoubtedly an advantage, and you can paint the model just a few minutes after cleaning. Secondly, it makes the surface matte and ready for better adhesion of a primer or paint. Thirdly, although it's a chemical product, it doesn't stink and can be used on all surfaces, exactly as you can see here. For plastic, anti-slip texture, resin, 3D prints and photo-etched parts. A large brush is enough for this and we can do the job. After the model degreaser is dry, all metal parts, especially the barrel, ropes and chains, were covered with a thin layer of metal primer. I try not to forget about this product because it definitely makes it easier to work with painting, especially if we have masking tape on the metal parts, which may cause some damage to the paint coating if it doesn't adhere well to the surface. Safety first and apply the primer. I did it in my basement, so there are no shots of this process, but as you can see, the whole model is covered with grey and the tracks are black. Now you can see how cool anti-slip texture looks like. In my opinion, it's awesome. And now it's time to make some general painting. Although I also have real colors from AK made especially for IDF vehicles, I decided to give another producer a chance, and this time is Polish Hataka. As you can see, it's acrylic paint and will be diluted with acrylic doctor from Modeler's World. This thinner works well with all acrylic paints, it's highly recommended. The model is quite big, so there will be quite a lot of painting. My compressor warmed up a bit, but luckily it didn't refuse to cooperate. I was able to paint everything quite well, and you can see how nicely this paint covers the surface of the model. For a bit of color variation, I found that both sides of the side shields will be painted in a shade that is currently used on IDF vehicles such as Merkava 3 or Merkava 4. It's more green. I know that maybe it's not a good idea for some people, but I'm almost sure that such a situation could have happened in a real vehicle. If it was possible on previous vehicles and I have seen it on Merkava 2, why not here? Besides, and this is probably the most important thing, the visual effect of the model will gain more attractiveness. This is undeniable. Slowly general painting is done and there is still airbrush lightening of the surfaces. Let's say it's such a color modulation, but very gentle. I added a little ivory to the base color and sprayed this mix around the edges. For an even cut I used a piece of cardboard, although in some places I left it aside and painted it freehand. Of course I treated the hull and turret in the same way, brightening individual panels. For a single core model like this one, any individual panel paint upgrades will do a good job. Brightening, adding various effects at the stage of painting, not weathering, will definitely raise the attractiveness of the model. So this is why I decided to play a bit with paints and make some additional work, which you can see here. I'm sure that the weathering will cover a lot of it, but this is the point where it's worth to make more than less. Later there won't be a chance to repaint it, and there will be no turning back option without destroying work done on the model. The main painting also includes the wheels. I painted all the rubber rims with a brush using the proven AK3G series paint. The color is appropriate, that is not black, and looks perfect after weathering. I painted all the rims by hand, and now you can clearly see how convenient it's to attach the wheel to a wooden stick. It can be easily manipulated during painting and set at the right angle. A few of the wheels are completely steel, so I painted the rims silver, which will be later treated with a pencil or a metallic pigment. Of course, the drive wheels and their teeth have also been painted. It's worth looking at how deeply the paint peels off the teeth and which places are polished to avoid overdoing it with the amount of metallic shine. And now the main painting is finished. It's time for details and coloring smaller elements equally important for the appearance of our model. First, the covers of the side panels. Again, I used the same paint as for the rims because this part is also made of rubber. I painted all the pieces with a brush because it was faster than masking and airbrushing. Now some characteristic red markings on the wheels. It's easy to notice in the pictures that the bolt on the axle cover is marked in red. Of course, this painting is far from perfect and you can often see how poorly the soldiers did it. Therefore, I didn't attach too much importance to the perfect coverage of these elements. In addition, I painted the bolts with silver paint on some wheels, which added a bit of variety to the final look. This time I painted the towing ropes with a different color than usual. It's exactly green-brown, which better represents the realistic look of these elements. Of course, I was inspired by the photos of ropes I had delivered with the battering ram and hooks that I showed in the Open the Box series. If you haven't watched it, click on the link at the top. Pictures of real vehicles show how to paint the ends of the ropes. Once again, good references are essential. I painted the front one silver and the rope on the turret had different colored ends, but that's in a moment. By the way, I added the headlight glasses so as not to forget about them before weathering. I covered the edges with a bit of PVA glue, which is enough to keep such small elements, and put the transparent parts there. The painting of the tools requires a bit of focus because it's easy to paint the wrong thing. Of course, it would be easier to paint them separately, but then when gluing there is a chance to damage the paint with glue, so I still paint these elements already glued on. It's not a problem, just take your time. Note how big is the screw I used as a holder. The springs are often the base color but also chipped and almost silver. It's a movable element, so I'm not surprised that the paint comes off. I gently rubbed them with a dry brush. I use dark brown, the same as for painting the tools. And with the same paint I also colored the chains that complemented the side panels on the sides. Later I will add some rust and some metallic sheen to them. Of course, they are so small that it's not very noticeable, but you know. The shackles very often appear on vehicles and have different colors: silver, black, red, yellow, brown, rusty, polished in various sizes and with different colors of the pins. You can choose anything. For now I have a dark grey undercoat. Later we will see which color fits best. The tail lights are silver as the undercoat and transparent red as the color of the glass. It's easy to be inaccurate here, so you have to correct their outline later with the base paint. Just like me. On the side shields we have small white squares with the numbers of individual panels. It's worth painting them, although they are not always marked with that in real vehicles. Okay, back to the red marks. The ones on the wheels won't be visible as much as I would like to, but on the hull it's a different matter. Of course, I'm continuing the intended inaccuracy in the painting and it will look natural as a result. Plain flat red is perfect for this. The same on the shovel. The hull is finished, now it's time for the turret. The end of the barrel must be black, later it will be properly painted during weathering. The cover for the smoke grenade launcher was also given a nice greenish tint. On the other side the box launcher will be all black inside, but on its basis the red marks must appear because I'm copying them from a real 2D Merkava picture. And the shovel again. I have secured the surface of the turret with a piece of paper to make painting easier. A simple trick to use in multiple places on the model. Another chain and I do exactly the same as before. Take a look at the fire extinguisher. It was a bit hard to paint, but somehow it worked. Later I will add some more details. Let's go to the back of the turret and to the basket to be exact. The first to be painted are fuel canisters. They will all be black. Later weathering will enrich their colors. A nice accessory is a blue stripe at the end of the towing cable, of course also copied from a real vehicle. The main color of the end is a bit lighter than base shade. I repainted the signboards to create more contrast, and now the faults I made in the previous episode are even more visible. Ammo boxes in two colors will attract attention the more that there is nothing else in such shades. It's a pity that the producer didn't provide any decals with inscriptions for them. The North Finder system has also been colored a bit, especially the sensors on the top plate. And the time to paint the tarps. Actually, it's not a rocket science. The most important thing is to do it accurate, especially in the back where access is difficult due to the elements of the basket. The shading will be done at the later stage. For now, the most important thing for me is to cover them with color. What is worth noting is that they have a completely different texture than my favorite paper tarps that I have already done on other models. It's just that the whole procedure is completely different. Here I do them during construction, I paint them just like the rest of the model, and when I add paper ones, they are painted at the stage of finishing the model. It all depends on what kind of vehicle we are making and what effects we want to achieve. It was obvious to me that in the case of this Merkava, tarps other than those made of green stuff are out of the question. They just fit me better here. One of the last things to paint are the antenna sockets. The distinctive white finish adds a lot to the look of the model. As we are on the antennas, I also painted them white. The black stripes seen in the many photos are easy to make. Just put a brush and gently rotate the antenna. This will result in a smooth strip. The tips can be black or white, whatever you want, or it may not exist at all. However, it was a pity for me to cut off such cute details just to throw them into the trash. The droid is a model itself. It's a nice accessory and looks interesting on the model. Painting is quite simple because in addition to the base color we have dark sensor windows in the main part and in the base. I covered them with a glossy varnish and that's all. Cables can be black or in base color, and I chose the first option to add even more contrast. Painting the machine guns is a simple matter. In addition to the base color, they are mainly black, with some wooden or dark brown elements. I additionally painted white stripes based on the photos. I don't know what they mean, but they look good. And I haven't seen such a sign on other models, so why not? I'm going back to painting the base color, but now it will lighten up the details a bit. A mixture of base color and ivory in proportion of 5:2 is okay to make good contrasts. I painted all the elements such as screws, edges of individual panels and handles with this mixture, and thanks to this all surfaces looks pretty good even though there is no wash on them yet. This is a simple technique but takes some time. In order not to lose any element, it's worth doing it with individual sections of the model. I did it first on the sides of the hull, then on the top, then on the rear, and then on the turret, on the sides and the top. This method is, in my opinion, quite precise and easy to paint, knowing how much is left to finish on a particular piece. The downside of this is the fact that it's better not to break it, because then we will have a lot of corrections. A steady hand, a good brush and proper paint dilution are essential. And the details are painted. Now I can easily put them into the place. First, the droid. I used the slow drying black widow glue to have time to align this element evenly. Then I started assembling the main machine gun and additional electric and manual control cables. As I had already done it on the Merkava 3, I had an easy task because I didn't have to wonder how all cables should be set. I used soldering wire and ordinary wire, which I burned before to make it more flexible. I glued them permanently to the turret and they were ready to be painted. The third stage is painting the markings. I didn't use any decals on the model and only used them to make templates. You can see right now how exactly I did it. I assumed my markings were to be hand painted and looked like this. The decals are too perfect, so after reviewing the photos I became convinced that this is a good solution, and even though it's not easy to paint such markings, I decided to do it. I painted the first marks on the turret basket from the template for which I used and destroyed the stickers from the set. As for me, they were a bit too small, so I changed the size and made them bigger. Then I corrected with a small brush to smooth out the individual letters and numbers a little. In my opinion, the effect is very good. I used the same template on all three boards. As you can see in the first left, some paint go under the masking, but that's not a problem. As I painted white, I immediately started making a stripe on the barrel. This is another characteristic element on IDF tanks. First I drew a line from the ruler, then I made the borders of the stripe and started to paint it by hand, trying to keep the edges clean. It was quite time consuming, but I didn't consider any other option. The masking tape didn't appeal to me due to the clamps of the thermal sleeve. The brush painting was the only sensible solution. The black lines added a proper look to the whole numbers, and now I can call them done in 100%, exactly as I wanted. Now completely freehand markings on the fenders. I copied them from the decals and they look quite good. The truth is that in a moment they will be very dusty during weathering, so it calmed me down a bit when it comes to possible mistakes while painting them. It seems to me that their appearance is sufficient. I did the side markings on the side shields in the same way as on the turret. They were definitely easier because of their shape. And this is the last work I did on the model today. In a moment you will be able to check how it looks like after all. But before you turn off, thank you for watching this episode. Next week I will deal with weathering. Subscribe to the channel to be close to my new videos and set your notifications. Please check the other movies I have posted on coldemonspl and write a comment if you like something or not. So, what do you think about all of this? I am very pleased with the effect I have obtained. I hope you like it as well, and today's video will be useful for someone who decides to build this model. If you have any questions or suggestions, I am ready to talk. Please visit my website on Patreon because you will surely find something more there. That's all for today. See you next Monday. Cheers!